Welcome to this week's episode of The Art of Authenticity. I am extremely excited. And I was just saying before we started, I'm having a small fangirl moment, which is rare for me. But today we have Sat Dharam joining us. Thank you for being here. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, Laura, for inviting me.
Sat Dharam is someone who has been integrating Kundalini Yoga with naturopathic medicine and is very interested in environmental sustainability. We're going to talk about your story and how you got here. But I want to just say, and I rarely do this, I'm very grateful I've had the opportunity to work with you and that you've deeply changed my life. And the way you've done that is just from your pure presence, just the energy that you show up in the room with. It's just quite healing. I got the chance to have some one-on-one sessions. So I just want to share that with you and the audience and just my gratitude for this moment and to express um, my belief that just by showing up sometimes with the energy of being, it can help us connect to ourselves. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks so much, Laura. My pleasure.
Well, I was sharing with you, I started this podcast years ago with this idea of how do we find that intersection between what we feel is a successful life, perhaps achievement-based success, right? Like some people, that means I am an artist and I just want to show my artwork. And some people, it might be 5 homes in an airplane. I don't know. But how do we find that in connection to what is authentically true, what we feel passion, what we feel connected to? And after about a decade of doing that, I found I got fatigued of that conversation. So I wanted to go a little deeper into this idea of authenticity. What is the truth of who we are? Why are we here? What is the essence of self? Things like that. But before we do, I just wanted to see if you would share a little bit about your story. I find it very interesting. I know your work personally is based in a lot of trauma and helping people with trauma, addiction. Kundalini is a tool that you used. And what I understand is that it comes from a story from your own past with your mother. And maybe you could take the audience through a bit of your story, how you came to this place of combining these very powerful methodologies into a holistic approach towards people. Where did this begin for you, this passion awaken in you?
Sure. Thanks so much. So first, I want to say that none of us is separate from our history and our history of our parents and their parents and our ancestry. And that whether we are conscious of it or not, there's healing required not only for ourselves, but for the family history. And sometimes it's one generation, one particular generation that will perhaps take on that healing. And that's what I feel like my role was in my family. My father was in the Second World War and fighting for the British. He was Polish. And he had PTSD when I was a child, although it wasn't named at that time. And I don't know that it was never diagnosed in his lifetime, but looking back at my own childhood and his outbursts of anger and his outbursts of violence, even though he was a great man, I can see that that's what was playing out. And my mother was very, very sensitive, very smart, very intelligent, very cultured in a way. Um, but she was looking for something. She was looking really for spirituality and couldn't find it, and didn't find it in organized religion, didn't find it in Christianity, but it was the hunger in her. She was really looking for spirituality. And because of a number of big traumas, we had a terrible car accident when I was 4. She went through the windshield. Then soon after that, her sister had a very terrible car accident, and 2 of her children were killed. And it was after that that my mother started to use alcohol as a way to numb her pain and her trauma. Now, it turned out that her father, my grandfather, was also an alcoholic. My mother's 2 sisters became alcoholics. And so that was really a coping mechanism for all of them. And so I saw that, I witnessed that. And I as a child, looking back, I recognized that I was very sensitive to my mother's pain. And she kind of leaned on me. I had 2 sisters. I was the youngest, but she sort of leaned on me to be the healer, I suppose, for her. And so I became her refuge in a kind of way, which I didn't want. I didn't want, and I resented. Now looking back, I can see that that's what was going on for me. I didn't want it. I didn't want to be that for her. Mm. But I grew up recognizing that she had a terrific amount of emotional and spiritual pain, and there was something in me that wanted to fix it. It was the love in me for my mother, really, and seeing her suffering that felt some sort of responsibility to fix it. I never could get her to stop drinking. She died of her alcoholism in her 60s. But that drive to ease the suffering of somebody you love is always in me. And so now I can look back and see that as a gift. Mm. That circumstance, that upbringing created this, maybe I won't even use the word created, but consolidated this this sense of purpose, really, to help ease suffering. Mm. I sometimes think of my mother now and think that on a soul level, this is a really weird thing. On a soul level, does someone choose, right? Does someone actually choose that suffering so that some other person, as in myself, can grow to help overcome suffering? You know, yeah. If we have lifetime after lifetime, and one lifetime is just a little blink, then on a soul level, does someone choose these things, to knowing that it's going to be a life of suffering, but that it's needed for something else to happen? I don't know the answer to that, but it's interesting to contemplate that as a possibility.
Yeah, because I'm listening and I'm hearing these words, something within me knew that I didn't want it and I resented it, but I felt drawn to it, right? Such an interesting combination of experiences for you to have a desire towards and resent, but know you have to on some level, but not want to. And so that question of what is that within us that is called towards, I don't know if that's the language you would use, but
yeah. And it's also, I mean, there's also the karmic imprints. So somehow I don't know, I'm a believer in karma. I'm a believer in that we don't come to this world as a blank slate. There are patterns that we come in with, and that whatever circumstances we have as a child are also circumstances to help us work through what we still have to work through. So on one level, I can say that upbringing was exactly what I needed to develop the capacities that I developed, and to have the drive that I have, and to have a sense of purpose that I do have. If I hadn't had that suffering around me, and if I hadn't had the violence of my father, if I, also the kindness of my father, I wouldn't be who I am, you know. So it's really an interesting looking back, you
Mm,
know,
yeah.
to see how everything fits together like a big jigsaw puzzle.
And I love what you said about perhaps some souls do sign up for suffering in an
Yeah.
effort to break that cycle for one of us to perhaps step forward in an effort to heal. Um, so you've from these experiences, it's led you down this path of naturopathic medicine. Can you just quickly explain? I've worked with it, but some people don't know the difference between an MD and an ND. Can you give an explanation of that for those who are not exposed?
The naturopathic medicine works with the body's own innate capacity to heal. And we strengthen that through removing what's in the way. So that might be certain lifestyle habits. It might be certain foods that are toxic to the person. It might be certain stressors that need to be reduced. It may be environmental toxins that they're exposed to. So first we look at what's in the way, what could be an obstacle to cure or an obstacle to healing, and help to educate the person on how to remove some of those. And then secondly, we look at how can we stimulate, how can we enhance this life force energy, this healing capacity in each of us. And that can be done with diet, it can be done with herbal medicine, it can be done with acupuncture, it can be done with homeopathy, it can be done with nutritional supplements, it can be done with psychotherapy. And so those are the tools of most naturopathic doctors. We're trained in acupuncture, Chinese medicine, nutrition, vitamins, minerals, herbs, Western herbal medicine. I was also trained in Chinese herbal medicine and diet. So and homeopathy. So with it's a beautiful palette actually, and it's you can be very creative with it with the individual and work with whatever they're most comfortable with.
Yeah,
And yeah,
my father's a famous Western medicine guy, and I love Western medicine in certain moments. You know, if you break an arm, they wrap it up nicely. But for all the other lifestyle things that happen, it is just a dream to work in the naturopathic world. It's really helped me so much, and I sort of can't get past that the Western medicine schooling doesn't have one nutrition class. I mean, they don't
yeah.
take one class, which is sort of shocking to think, you know? It's like you look at the car and all the parts, and you don't look at what we put in the car. Just going to skip that little piece of the gasoline and wonder why, if we put, sugar in the car, it's not running. I mean, it's quite silly. Yeah. Um, okay, thank you for that explanation. And in addition to the naturopathic side, you bring in Kundalini Yoga, and you also work with this compassionate inquiry that you and I worked in as well. Um, your story too, um, through your own experiences in your childhood that you shared, how did you move from there to finding Kundalini, finding compassion inquiry, finding the naturopathic medicine? What was that process for you personally? Was it to help heal yourself and then bring it to others? Was it really um, you had already known you wanted to heal others and it was just tools that you were acquiring that you felt worked? What was that for you?
As a teenager, I was interested in psychology. I was also interested in the natural world. So I was quite fascinated with biology and um, and I read a lot of about psychology. So that was of interest for me as a teenager. I was also a writer and an artist as a teenager. So these were my loves, was art, literature, and biology. And I veered towards I spent a lot of time in nature, and I would say I was a contemplative, even as a child. I would sit under a tree for a long time or watch the water for a long time. I was a contemplative as a child. When I went to university, I initially started in biology, and then I found it. What I recognize now is I found that there was no awe in the teaching of biology. I was in the sciences, and I became depressed because the mystery was not presented in the way it was taught. It was just so strange
Mm.
and quite depressed. And I recognize now that what I was appreciating was the great mystery, and I needed it for my soul. And it was being flattened in the way that science was being taught.
What do you mean by great mystery and awe for you in
I
that?
would I would look at them under a microscope at organisms, and I would just think they were the most beautiful things in the whole world. And how come everyone doesn't get this? Or I would study physics or um, biophysics, or and see patterns and awe, really. And it was not stated at all. It was like dead. This was dead in the way it was taught.
Like
And I
more
would,
facts than,
yeah, it was facts. And it wasn't working for me, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so I decided I can't do this like this. I need to also work with the arts. And so I went back and forth between art school and university, and art school and university, just being an artist for a few months and then going back to the sciences until I had both degrees. And then when I finished both degrees, it's like, how am I going to make a living? And then that's when the healing piece started, because I knew I couldn't make a living as an artist. And so the next piece was, I thought maybe art therapist, but then I ended up going into naturopathic medicine.
Mm, yeah, beautiful. And how did the Gabor Mate piece come in after that?
Well, so that was, so I graduated in 1989 as a naturopathic doctor. And my interest was always in mind body healing. I also taught stress management and sort of mind body medicine at the naturopathic college for many years. And um, then I started practicing Kundalini Yoga when I was 19, as I was studying art and science. And uh, I became interested in that because I was working in the library and started to read the yoga books. And then I met somebody that was practicing Kundalini Yoga, and we meditated together. And then I had a profound experience, and I thought, well, this is the only thing that's real, you know.
Wait, we
So
have to pause there. That's a big statement. Would you mind sharing a little bit more? Like, what was the profound moment, and what do you mean it's the only thing that's real? That's
well, I we did a 2.5 hour meditation, and towards the last maybe half hour of that 2.5 hour meditation, I would say my identity collapsed, what I
Mm,
thought I was, the ego identity collapsed. And I became light and unconditional love and absolute wisdom.
mm,
And there was a total sort of merger with that that reshaped my understanding of reality. So
wow.
in that experience, I knew that what I thought was real wasn't real,
Mm.
and that the only thing that was real was this new experience.
And
It
what
was
did you think was real that collapsed?
everything the mind makes up.
Mm.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Like,
Everything the mind makes up isn't
and
real.
what does the mind make up? Like, what's the line there of the mind to the the light and the love that you experience?
No connection.
Mm.
There's no connection with the
Oh,
mind.
wow.
And it's just no mind in it.
There's no mind in the experience of light and love.
No,
Yeah.
there's zero
Ooh,
mind.
I got to pause on that. That's good. That just gave me goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
Mind wasn't there.
connection.
The mind wasn't there. And
And that's the experience of the totality
yeah,
when we move past it.
yeah.
And yet we're always all in it all
We're
day.
always in it. We're in it all the time, but the mind is what separates us from it.
Yeah.
The attachment, the attachment to the mind, to the attachment to the delusion of what the mind is making up. It's not that it isn't real. I mean, there's a table here, right? But in this other dimension, it's not real.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so to slow down that moment for you, was it in a second? Was it over minutes? Do you even know?
It was
Um,
over about probably about a half an hour,
mhm.
but it changed my view. And in that moment, I also it was so profound that in that moment I made a vow to myself that this is what I would serve.
You would serve the knowing
Yeah,
that we are.
experience. Yeah.
And what does it mean to you? This is, I love this. Sorry, we're gonna get back to the story of Gabor in a second, but when you say you made a vow, um, meaning this is the thing that's real and to be in service to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because everything else is pale.
Mm.
Everything else is meaningless compared to that.
Can I ask a few follow-up questions to that?
Yeah. Sure.
And how does that, because there's many people who do psychedelics or have a moment, or I've had a bunch. I mean, and then that damn next day comes and the mind grabs you again. That vow you made, how did you wake up the next day and the week after that and the month after that and hold that knowing um, as purely? Because I hear today you're speaking of it decades later with the same level of, right? It's
Yeah.
coming through with that same level of like, it's like it happened yesterday, hearing you
Mm.
share.
Well, that's what it was like, you know. To some degree, it was beyond time, and it's very real for me. Um, and because of the experience, I suppose I need a high level of meaning in my life to feel fulfilled. And so that's what I'm working towards. I mean, that's what I work towards is to whether it's through teaching Kundalini Yoga or healing people or doing compassion inquiry, it's really bringing people towards that experience one way or another. You know,
And do
that's
you lose the connection to that vow?
no, I don't.
Wow.
I mean, it's like a thread that I hold. Of course, you know, I go through days, but I've never let go of that thread.
Mm.
I've never let go of that thread.
So there's hours or days where the mind grabs you again and
For sure.
becomes, oh,
But I
here
would
I am
say
again.
that that's my guide. You know, it's not even like it's a conscious choice. That's what's guiding me. That's what's guiding me.
Ah, thank you for sharing more of that. So you had this experience, you had this profound, I mean, what people might call a spiritual awakening, right? To put it simply. Um, and I interrupted your story, but if you wouldn't mind continuing from there, you were going to share about how it led to the compassionate inquiry and
Okay, so then you know, that happened when I was 19.
yeah.
I finished naturopathic college when I was in my late 20s, maybe 27 or so. And then well, that was my first introduction to Kundalini Yoga, that experience. So that you can see there's nothing that's going to take me away from Kundalini Yoga when that's your first introduction to it.
Yeah.
So Kundalini Yoga became my anchor and still is. And I've just deepened my relationship to it over time and find it more um, satisfying and fulfilling. And I'm more impressed with it, over time rather than less than. It's more than, it just keeps growing. So when I finished naturopathic medicine, I was already teaching a lot of Kundalini yoga classes, and I had started to work with women with breast cancer using Kundalini yoga. And then a few years later, so around 2008, I started teaching a program working with people with addictions using Kundalini yoga, combining it with a little bit of naturopathic medicine. And I started to read Gabor Mate's book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, in 2009. And I was reading it as I was teaching this Beyond Addiction program. And so it just seemed like a beautiful match with what he was talking about and what I was teaching. And so then I emailed him, connected with him to see if he would teach with me so that I could have the benefit of his wisdom and his experience working with addictions and integrate that into the course. And eventually he said yes. And eventually we started working together in 2012, where he co-taught part of the Beyond Addiction program with me in Vancouver. Yeah. And then I could see what he was doing with people, working with them one-on-one during that program. And we did it again in 2015, 2016. And he was there the program was over 4 weekends, 1 weekend a month for 4 months. And he was there every Saturday morning for those sessions. And we videotaped them. And then I became really taken and curious and impressed with what I saw him do when he was working with people one-on-one.
And why him? Like, what was it about, I mean, his methodology or him as a person, or, I mean, what was that connection for you?
Well, it's like anything. Why anything, right? I mean, what brings people together to do these things? That's the mystery, isn't it? That's the mystery.
Yeah.
So it was a fit. That's all I can say is that I could see what he was doing and could um, kind of in my head structure it more than probably he could himself.
Hmm.
And so there was this desire in me to learn it for myself and train my Beyond Addiction trainers, because I had other people that were teaching Beyond Addiction, because this seemed to be a very quick, very compassionate, profound way to work with people to create shifts in them. And I had done some counseling psychotherapy as part of naturopathic medicine, and I'd never seen anything like this. So it was intuitive more than anything else, is that I need to do this, I need to structure this. I need to and there was a recognition that at that time Gabor was leading integration sessions for psychedelics too. Right? He was going to Mexico and other places to do psychedelic retreats where the shamans would do the work, and he would come in afterwards and lead the integration sessions. And I knew he was doing that, and so it was interesting because I knew that if I was able to put this thing together, it would help him and those people that were working with psychedelics. And it would help me and my trainers who were working with Kundalini Yoga. So it was like a double helping thing. And because I'm a helper, right? Because of my mother, it was, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And so I started to structure it.
And what did you use? Because I'm assuming it wasn't this system. You mentioned when you were young, you were the helper for your mother and you were there. And at the same time, you now reflect back and know you resented it. And such a big piece of healing is to do our own work to recognize where those blocks are and
Sure.
get to our true identity, which we can talk about the love within. But what did you use? I know Kundalini, but was that the main way that you did it? What do you?
It was mainly Kundalini Yoga because now after practicing Kundalini Yoga for about 10 years, I look back and say, oh my gosh, I released a lot of anger that I didn't know I had,
Mm,
But so the Kundalini, because it's so physical, and I was able to process a lot of emotions. But then in Kundalini Yoga and in many spiritual practices, there isn't a lot of room for the emotional work. So there's where compassion inquiry came in. I also recognized that there was a need to have another modality that would help people work with the emotions. And that's where the compassion inquiry came in. The spiritual work is fantastic, but it does need to be coupled with emotional work to get underneath and look at what's there. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And what I love about compassion inquiry is that it interrupts that you're I feel some traditional therapy, you go in and they want you to talk more about your story. And my belief is we are so deep in our story. We are so deep in repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating the same exact perspective over and over. And so to interrupt it, get into the feelings underneath it, the emotions, and then to release it perhaps with something physical. Is that how you would describe that process to help people move past these, right? We have an identity structure of who we are in the world around us, and we don't see another way to see life.
Yeah. There's two things. Well, there's three things that have to happen. First, from the perspective of compassion inquiry, first we need to feel safe. In order to feel safe, we need someone that we feel safe with who can hold us emotionally and who we can kind of transfer, right? Have that transference of here's the good parent right there in that therapeutic space with that person. Otherwise, we won't, we will still be defensive, right? We'll be defending ourselves. So that the first thing is to have in compassion inquiry, we call empathetic abiding presence, another person that can act as that empathetic witness and holder of space for us and really listen and be attuned. So that's the first thing, because not much will happen without that, because we can't, at least not initially, do it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't get it. At least
Yeah.
we didn't get enough of it. So we need somebody else to take that role. So that would be the compassion inquiry practitioner once they're trained,
Mm-hmm.
It's that stand-in for the parent that's compassionate and accepting and allowing and creates that open space or allows this open space. That's the first thing. And then the next thing is, as you say, the interruption of the story. Now, that interruption of the story is the compassion inquiry practitioner is looking for these unconscious beliefs that show up in the way the person expresses themselves, and they're really telling. And then we have to interrupt and bring those to awareness, and question through inquiry, question that belief. Now, that belief, and whether it's I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or I'm not important, or I don't matter, or I'm defective, or I'm wrong, it's my fault, all of these, all of the above, are what we project on the world unknowingly. And we project onto other people,
Mm-hmm.
make them the bad person, right? Because they're doing this to us. But no, it's that belief is inside of us. But that belief is what's reinforcing the suppressed emotion. That emotion could be sadness or rage or shame or fear or terror or something, disgust. So that emotion is what we didn't express as a young child because we weren't held. So there's three parts. We need the therapist to be the empathetic witness. We need someone to interrupt the story so that we can see these beliefs that we've been holding that are running the show that we're not aware of. That's the delusion the mind is creating.
Mm.
But then we also need to go to the body to release or to let unwind, maybe we can say, to allow the unwinding of these emotional signatures that have gotten lodged in the body because there was no possibility of that being experienced, held, seen, understood, allowed when we were a child. So it's these three parts that need to happen almost not exactly simultaneously, but we allow them all in one CI session so that the shift can happen. Because if you just deal with the beliefs, you haven't dealt with the somatic piece. If
Yeah.
you just deal with the somatic piece and you haven't changed the belief is going to come back again and reinforce that old somatic piece. So you've got to kind of work all three of these areas at the same time. And
Yeah.
then eventually have the client or the individual learn over time to be compassionate to whatever shows up. That's the other piece, is the self-compassion. That's something that we learn. Yeah. I'm
I
not sure if that explained it well enough, but that's
Oh,
a,
beautifully,
yeah.
beautifully. And I can't help kind of coming back to this conversation at the beginning of our time where you were mentioning perhaps people sign up in a lifetime. I do the Akashic records, and the belief is that we have a soul plan and we sign up for things and we come here and we're like little characters playing out a part.
Yeah.
When we go through these systems, while I do believe a lot of it is in our childhoods and our stored physical bodies and in these narratives, how do you fit in that other piece of perhaps it's a multi-life karmic thing, or maybe it's part of your soul plan, or however you might say it, the part about your, somebody coming here to suffer to help somebody else. How do we cope with those pieces? For myself, I found a huge part of my own journey has been moving towards trying to understand myself as perhaps a multi-lifetime energy. And so everything I'm trying to heal or understand, I can't. And the Akashic record has showed me things that I'm like, oh, well, that weirdly makes sense to me, even though as Laura, I don't have a felt memory. It didn't happen in this life is how I can say it. So how do you think about that in the ecosystems, as people are working through, perhaps traumas that are not easing in the way that one might hope?
Well, it's a big question. I also believe that we can heal 100% and we can heal quickly
Mm,
and we can drop all of these identifications with the right interventions and the right opportunities to heal, which is why I do the work that I do. You
of
know,
course.
if I didn't believe that healing was possible, then why would I do what I do? But I think that combination of healing is through work like compassion inquiry, through naturopathic medicine, so that we restore the well-being of the body to the best of our ability and restore our vitality to the best of our ability. It's hard to heal if the vitality isn't there, you know.
Yeah.
But also through the spiritual work, because a lot of what gets in the way, ultimately, it's attachment and identification. It's identification, you see, is the biggest disease, really.
Mm,
And identification, that's what, see, this experience I had, there was no mind, right? That's the mind identifying with, this is who I think I am. This happened to me. This is what happened to me karmically. I have to work through this over and over again. That's still attachment.
mm,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So
mm,
that's what has to clear. And that's the meditation process. That's the meditation process of using, whether it's breath work or mantra or some sort of vipassana type meditation, is to lessen this hold of attachment and identification. And that's, I think, a missing piece in psychotherapy,
mm-hmm.
because we can beat ourselves up and go over and over and over the same wound because we think we need to be fixed. Well, there's nothing to fix, actually, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
but that's where we have to get out of the mind. And so for me, that's where the yoga comes in.
Ugh, I love that you say this. People say to me, Laura, people don't change. And I'm like, oh my God. It
Yeah.
kills me because I don't want your essence to change. I
Mm.
want to move out of this identification of that as self into this other piece that you're expressing so beautifully. And I think we can, and we do. And so you said we can and we do and we can quickly. And so for all these listeners out here, I'm going to grab that sentence and come back around because I think this is you're hitting on the part, Sat Dharam. I think people do want to heal. They put time and money and effort in, and sometimes they're still going back to the mind and
Yeah.
rehearsing and thinking they need to fix one more thing so that they can have love, one more thing so they can have purpose, right? If they just do that last healing, then they will. Um, when you said quickly, my body sort of jumped. Um, what does that mean for you?
Well, for me, it would be like a combination of something like compassion cry or other therapies that may be similar, where there's inquiry, right? There has to be inquiry. There has to be a somatic piece, and there has to be this willingness to be interrupted, right? To be open, to be interrupted. So the story, we loosen our attachment to the story. So
Mhm.
that has to be there, 100%. Or you're just going to be telling the same story to a sympathetic ear for your life, right? Who cares? Because the ultimate is the experience that we are unconditional love. That's our true identity. That's who we are. We are perfection. We are omniscience. That's the true identity. So that's where we need another practice. And it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it works for the individual, that some meditation practice to still the mind, to empty the mind,
Mhm. Mhm.
so
And
that we get through that attachment piece. We don't attach to the mind or the body for that matter.
and
Mhm.
that like I think there's an idea out there that eventually you'll get to a place where the mind is just quiet and happy all the time, and that's not the goal, right? It's like the mind is always chirping away. It's just that I don't take it so seriously, is how I think of it.
Right, and it's not in the lead. Ideally, something else is in the lead, which is essence. That spiritual piece. That's the guide, and the mind is coming along and helping out.
Right? It's the tool to
So to
express
yeah,
the heart, the soul. Yeah.
yeah.
So for someone out there who's just getting started or has a bit of a practice, who's looking for maybe just a couple, like a more practical thing, is there a breathing technique you would suggest or one quote or book that you're just like, oh my God, I know we talked about compassion inquiry. I would definitely recommend that to anybody. You have tons of practitioners on your site, but is there something that you feel like, oh, I could just get them to do this one thing?
Uh, so many things, right? Well, it's a great place to start is with the breath, and one simple breathing technique. Well, there's a few. One could be just slow your breath down to 4 to 6 breaths per minute, and then you're turning on your parasympathetic nervous system. You'll be much less stressed, and the mind will slow down.
Hmm.
It's one piece. If not that, then another piece could be inhale through the left nostril, pause for a few seconds, and then exhale through the right nostril. And keep going. Inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right. But make a little pause between the inhale and the exhale. In that little pause, the mind is still. And just focus on that stillness in that little pause. And then just increase the length of that little pause over time. But that will, inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, will help to amplify your right hemisphere, which is more felt sense in the present moment, and turn down the volume of the story making of the left hemisphere. Inhale left, exhale right. So that's another practice. And then in Kundalini Yoga, we often use mantra, and the we have several different mantras. The primary one is Sat Nam. Inhale Sat, exhale Nam. And I can't tell you how profound this mantra has become for me, well, I just told you. So it's so simple, but so profound. So if Sat means the absolute truth beyond names and forms. So that experience that I have, you could call that Sat. You
Mm,
know, it the translation of the word is truth, but it's not, hey, that's true and that's not true. It's like the absolute truth before there's any permutation, before there's any identification. It's that pure essence of being is Sat. And Nam means how we manifest or identity. So when you inhale Sat, exhale Nam, if that's all you do, but you really do it and you connect with that sound Sat as this formless truth, and you connect to it with a kind of reverence, then that little mantra can help to override your thinking. And you can do it anywhere, anytime, you know.
mm.
And you can do it from the heart. And that's just a beautiful little practice that anyone can do. Yeah.
Thank
Inhale.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Um, so switching gears just a little bit, I mentioned to you just before we jumped on that the number one question we get over in my world is, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And behind that question, I believe, is this little feeling within, this authentic self, this part that's calling out, I have something to say. There's something, that truth within, right? Past the mind. It's subtle, it's nuanced, it's often without language. It's just a knowing. And I feel an energizing and uplifting towards something. And then the mind comes in and, oh, you can't do that, or that doesn't make sense. Or, um, but the people want to know, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why have I embodied if I'm a soul? Things like that. What do you believe is the purpose of for yourself, for us collectively? Do you have a view on that?
Mhm. Such a little question, Laura.
I know I'm known for my small question.
um, well, my perspective is that there is uh, one big consciousness of which we're all a part,
Mm,
and that consciousness is seeking to know itself and to be itself. It's not just you or me, it's everything together is one consciousness seeking to be whole. And we learn through one another, right? We're becoming whole through the interactions. Nothing is random that happen to us. And the people we meet, the things, the accidents that happen, the things, the illnesses that happen, it's all part of this evolving one consciousness, so that um, we become more conscious of that. So, and what does that mean? It means that together we become more loving, we become more accepting, we become more caring, we become more aware, we become more humble, we become more aware of the effects of our actions on all beings, not just people, but plants and animals and rocks and rivers and all beings. And we seek the most harmonious, and that the word for that would be Dharma. We seek moving towards the most harmonious outcome for all.
mm.
That would be Dharma for the whole, not just for the one individual, but for the whole.
And for people, Loke, thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. And for people looking for how they play their part of this collective purpose, um, finding that voice within. Do you have suggestions on?
Well, it's slow the breath down.
Same
Inhale,
thing.
exhale, no.
Yeah.
Take it there eventually. You see, it's revealed, right? This whole thing is revealed to us when the mind is quiet.
Yeah. And then
So
action, right? Sat Dharam, like, because it reveals, but then the mind shuts it down again and we don't trust to listen.
yeah,
Mm.
that's where the Kundalini Yoga comes in.
Mhm.
Basically, we need a daily practice to keep cleaning, right? To do the house cleaning
Yeah.
of clearing the mind. That old stuff is going to come back over and over and over again. So we need a daily practice to clean it out, and until most of it's cleaned out.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. Otherwise, it's just going to keep piling up.
Yeah. I keep thinking, oh, I've gotten to my moment of I'm like the moment I say, oh yeah, I'm good, I feel like I've really got this. It's like famous, last words, right? It's like every day you have to come back to the breath, come back to that feeling within. I don't know how to describe it exactly, right? But I use this quote at the still point of the turning world.
Yeah.
There the dance is.
Mhm.
A white light still and moving from T.S. Eliot. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever works to get to that still point and anchor there and just wait for things to be revealed, and also trust the moment and trust we have to, as you said, trust what comes to us. It's things will happen around us or happen to us that are part of what we're meant to embrace. And so we just have to keep embracing what is.
Yeah. And this image when you were talking earlier about how parents are the cause of so much struggle, and to have somebody hold that empathic presence later. I was just thinking about you and people like you sitting around in classrooms around the world for little kids. You could just have another class all day of just presence for these kids to let out these energies. It's unfortunate it's not part of our ecology or our ecosystem as we're evolving through our childhood and teenage years to have a space to experience
It's
someone in
coming
presence.
though. It's coming. There are more programs in schools of kids being more emotionally literate, and teachers are learning. So it's coming. It's a great thing that it's changing.
I believe that too. Yeah, it's moving. Do you feel it's going in the right direction for kids today?
In some places it is. Certainly
Hmm.
not in some places it is.
Yeah. I have a 20-year-old and I find his world, because they can look up everything. They have so much more vocabulary.
Mhm.
And at the same time, at least in the States, there is this pressure on kids that is profound to um, be busy all the time at the same time. So seems like a bit of a conflict there.
Yeah, there is. It's more left hemisphere, right?
Yeah, yeah. So in your own story, are you still, is there anything you're still healing? Are there things that you still find
100%.
arise?
For sure. Yeah, yeah, all the time. All the time. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And why is that? I guess let me ask it this way. When you say that we can heal, you don't mean that there's nothing left to heal. You just mean perhaps the attachment to it is different. Can you explain? Because I think sometimes people think we're healed, meaning I have no more negative childhood traumas or dark areas within myself that arise. And then when it comes up again, it's defeating, right? Like, oh, I thought I was done with my childhood or something like that.
Yeah. Um, well, none of us is perfect, right? So we're always going to be imperfect. That's the thing. And I think the key would be self-acceptance and self-compassion. So that's the other piece that we want to expand as we heal is our own self-acceptance and self-compassion. And as we do that, um, our suffering goes down. That's all I can say. And our identification with whatever we think is wrong with us decreases.
Hmm. So when you think of what you're healing, you don't think in terms of there's something wrong with me.
No, or minimally. Minimally. It doesn't linger so much. No, I'm very grateful, super grateful for where I am in my life right now. And I feel incredibly blessed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing it this way and very vulnerably and openly, because I do think a lot of people project this concept of healed means I'm no longer um, internally reflecting and finding areas of struggle or, difficult days or difficult hours. I've somehow gotten to this place where I don't have that experience. And I think it sets a bar. It's like physically, I'm just going to be in a place where I just never have to do sit-ups. My abs are perfect. It's like we're always going to have harder days or difficult situations, or perhaps things come back up from our past that we thought we healed. And there's another layer. And to
Yeah.
not feel defeated or that you're, still broken or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other piece though, Laura, is when there is we don't need to be perfect, but when we have a sense of what our sense of purpose is, what we're supposed to be doing in the world, and it's authentic, it really is us, and it's unique to us, then that's bigger than whatever limitations we have. And if we can serve that, right? That's what I love. I love serving that more than I feel my limitations.
Mm,
So it's like we have to nurture this calling or purpose, whatever you want to call it, and keep moving towards that rather than over focus on I still need to be fixed.
yeah. Yeah. And one final question for you, that feeling of purpose or calling, what does that feel like for you? Like people out there are often seeking that experience, and it's quite elusive to describe, I think. Do you have a way of describing what
Well,
that feels like?
usually I'll get a intuitive kind of directive, get an intuitive directive, and sometimes it comes out of left field. I'm not, oh, that's interesting. Where'd that come from? But it doesn't go away.
Mm.
That's the thing. It'll come back and come back and come back, and
Yeah.
it doesn't go away. And then there's this process of acceptance, whatever that is. It has to come back long enough that I can finally accept it. I
Hmm.
might accept it the first time. I might accept it the 10th time that it's kind of tapping on my shoulder. When I accept it, then there's usually a feeling of something in my heart, excitement, joy, um, even if it's big, right? Even if it's, oh my gosh, really that, you know? But there'll be some excitement and joy. And then my inner motor starts to move towards it. And then I feel this sense of fulfillment. I
And this is
experience.
what I find so fascinating.
Mm.
Something's tapping on you, right? So there's this feeling of an awareness around us that brings it forward. And then there's a sense of acceptance, meaning, right, some part of that mind that resists, is this really what I'm going to do? That's a lot of hours. I don't know. How do I fit that in my schedule? Whatever that might mean. And I'm not suggesting that's your exact story, but um, and then that acceptance of I guess bringing that intuitive calling that comes for me around me or something, I bring it within, and it sort of all comes together. Um, but it does seem to start from people say, like, I don't know, it just came to me, or I was walking in the park and I just had an awareness, or I don't know where that thought, it arose, right? And this is why I've gotten into the Akashic record, because I'm like, I don't think all of it's happening in my mind. I don't think it's all even happening sometimes in my heart. I think it might be surrounding me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you say that, tapping on the shoulder, is it because the experience is happening maybe not within the body.
Well, in Indian philosophy, they call this chitta, right? Which is universal mind.
Mm-hmm.
And our minds just maybe grab onto some of that chitta that's there. So some of that gets through and some of it doesn't get through, and we attach to certain pieces and not. So I think mind is kind of universal, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And we attune to certain frequencies, and this universal consciousness is working through all of us simultaneously, attempting to make things happen if we pay attention and listen and follow through. And if we don't, then it'll go to somebody else. I mean, it's a living system that's always calibrating. That's how I view it, like a big computer, always recalibrating to see what can happen next.
I love it. I could spend hours, as I'm sure the audience can tell. You're just a endless, as you just said, a vast computer of information in so many directions. If anybody's out there looking to experience any of your programs, from Beyond Addiction to the Kundalini to Gabor Mate, where's the best place to find you? And is there any program that you're running currently?
Yeah, my website is satdharamkaur.com. And my programs are on that website, and then it takes you to other websites. So the Beyond Addiction program starts January the 6th online for 16 weeks. And then there's an in-person program in March in Spain and in May in Owen Sound, where I live. I have another program called Sutradhar that starts on January the 10th, and that's a year-long program with 4 weekends using Kundalini Yoga and kind of some of what we're talking about, really, to plug in and tune into your calling. 4 weekends a year, and then integration sessions in between, and an inquiry once a week to explore. I will be offering a Kundalini Yoga teacher training in March, starting in March, 200-hour training in Owen Sound in Canada, where I live. It's in Ontario, 3 hours north of Toronto. And Compassion Quarry, we have many programs in Compassion Quarry. We have a professional training that starts 3 times a year. It's a year-long intensive training. We have support groups called CI Circles that also start 3 times a year. So those are some of the programs I
It's
yeah,
wild. It's so amazing. Thank you for all you do. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for how you've showed up in my own life. And thank you for coming on the show and sharing your gifts and your voice.
you're welcome, Laura. Nice to connect with you again.
Thank you.